Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out for this artist talk with Hannah Tishkoff on the occasion of her beautiful and inspiring solo exhibition, Beginning of a Poem. Thanks for coming out. I guess to start off, Hannah, maybe if you could give us some context on the title and maybe some of your preliminary thinking in putting together the show.
Yeah. The title comes from a Paul Klee drawing that is also called Beginning of a Poem, in which there's all these kind of words and letters that are, it's kind of a preliminary drawing that are kind of dripping off the page. And I was thinking, I'm a big fan of Paul Klee. I made a big haul to see the Paul Klee show in New York when I was there recently on my way to the airport, and showed up with my suitcase, and they were like, "We don't allow suitcases in here." And I was like, "Please, you don't know how much I need to see this show." And then they were like, "Come in the security door." But yeah, and then I was like seeing that work and just hearing I think a lot about like accessing a beginner's mind and the kind of like freshness of beginning something and the freedom and possibility of that, and kind of accessing, I was born on a new moon. It's a new moon right now. New moons are all about new beginnings. And so kind of trying to capture and stay in that kind of spirit and that energy as you progress further and further into a work. And that's kind of the way that I approached all of the pieces in the show, which are all they're each kind of contained in their own singular world, like their own kind of contained beginning. But then hopefully all together, they kind of start to string together as a kind of sentence or phrase.
Yeah, I think something that I'm really struck by with the works in the exhibition is they're, like you called it, like a container, or like it's like a concrete sort of logic or proposition.
Yeah.
Could you talk about like what's your favorite one to kind of illustrate this idea of like setting out a set of conditions and kind of like letting it run?
Yeah, I do. I like to create these kinds of, I kind of language games or color games, or create kind of systems for myself. And this work is called pH Scale for Life, and it's the second version of this kind of concept that I've made. The first one I made when I was 26, and this one I made now I'm 29. And each section has the color dot in it that corresponds to a kind of color relationship that I associate with being that age. So it's really like an idiosyncratic color theory of my own subjective creation. But then I use those colors to map onto other paintings so that the kind of affect of a particular age or time period is then encoded in other paintings. And I use that a lot on the work that is in the back there, Beyond Love, There Is No Belief, in thinking about, which is also kind of has this, like the circles kind of remind me of an abacus, like the ancient mathematical technique, and kind of, thinking about different kinds of systems that we create to kind of contain a kind of logic or meaning, but also the ultimate like impossibility of keeping track of anything, honestly. So it's this kind of like quack science that I invent for myself to kind of feel emotionally that I'm that things are being contained, and there's even, I think it's also kind of, I think it's funny also to try to do that. I think math is funny, or I think certain
there's that painting that I'm holding on to where you've just painted science onto it.
I think science is kind of funny, like that we, like seems so confident that we've really like figured
anything out.
anything out. And I have my own contributions to the scientific field.
Not least of which is a various set of mechanisms for measurement. It seems like I really like this piece, which is the titular work, yes?
Yeah.
Beginning of a poem.
Beginning of a poem, yeah.
Where you've mapped, in a way, like a splintered abstraction over the rings of life of the tree.
Yeah.
Say more.
Yeah, I mean, it's related in a way. It's related to this piece in a similar way that, yeah, each of the rings on the tree so poetically mark that each year has passed, and then I kind of thought I'd kind of break them up with these kind of chaotic lines that don't quite have a logic to them, and then fill in each ring with colored pencil. So it's
like a coloring book.
Yeah, it's kind of like a ready-made coloring book in the form of a tree. I learned that this form, because I've been trying to find more of them, they're called cookies. So I'm looking
chewing on that.
I'm looking to chew on a few more cookies if I can get my hands on them. This piece of wood cut in this shape is called a cookie. Yeah.
I guess there's like also a specific way that they have to preserve it too.
Yeah, it has to, because otherwise it'll crack if it's not heated at the right temperature, and I think also at the right size. Like if it's too large, it'll crack. So I'm excited to get more into the science of cookies. And
in sitting the show thus far, it's only been open for a week, but I've been having several really lovely interactions with people. One that really sticks out is that a man kind of wandered through and came over and started digressing about his perception of the work. And he mumbles something about outsider art, and then he looks at me very like brightly and says, "So, when did she die?" To much to his chagrin, I informed him you were very much alive, and there's a beautiful photo of you right in front of him in the press pack that he could gaze upon. And his face he pauses, like almost mortified, and his face slackens. He goes, "Oh, I've completely misunderstood." Proceeded to walk around the gallery again, and then just leave. But it brought up something that I feel like feedback that you get often. There's a sort of like, like pre-modern sensibility to the work, and a specific kind of, I don't like the word de-skilled, but like there's a certain kind of maybe optimism encoded in the work. Do you want to talk about that perspective, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm curious I would love to know what the shift in perception was for the person who thought that they were looking at, because it's such a romantic idea, this, the artist creating outside of the regular conditions of society.
Like a fairy tale outside of the machine.
Yeah, exactly. And that is obviously not the case for me. I mean, it's something I think about a lot, and ultimately I feel like the best answer I can arrive upon is just that when I make things, this is just what they look like. And I think there is, I've never taken a formal painting or drawing class per se. So there is I wouldn't necessarily say that there's a de-skilling. I think it's really like the best I've got. But I think I try to approach the things I make through this kind of, that there's like a back trap door in your mind where there's no fear or pretense, and you have lots of ideas and you want to make sense of the world, and you need it to all come out in exactly the way that it does, and to pay attention to the message that is giving you. And then after I can kind of do that, then I can approach the work from the front door. And that's kind of the fun part, which is like tinkering on things. Like it was really fun to place this work, to build this frame for this work, and like the framing that's happening in the front door. But like this idea to think about like that there's a relationship between neon yellow and sapphire blue with the age of 14 is like fully coming from the back door.
Mm-hmm.
And and a lot of that has to do with my interest in color. I think color it's a nice song. Color really guides my decision-making process, and the colors that I'm drawn to have, I think, evoke a certain emotional quality, or that's kind of something I'm always after, is like the dialogue between colors and the kind of poem that the colors can create when they're paired with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I just get so much pleasure in the kind of problem solving of that.
Yeah, what would you call your palette? I feel it feels quite distinct.
What would I call my palette? I mean, well, one thing that did happen in this show is that, like, because I love color so much, I am constantly having to temper myself so that things just don't look completely crazy. And so before I start, like around the time I started working on the work in this show, I got into using flash paint, which is a very matte based paint that just comes ready in these jars. And I got maybe 6 jars of the flash paint, and then I don't mix them. They're just kind of the ready-made colors. And so at least in this show, I think the greens and the blues and the browns and this kind of reddish ruddy color, and then this pink did kind of structure the palette of the whole show. And yeah, hopefully I think that prevents it from just like blowing up into crazy rainbow.
It also though feels a little like not dusty, but sort of like a child picks up crayons, but it's like tempered by some sort of maturity or something. There's like a tonal patina that like masks what feels like a very like exuberant sort of immediate color palette.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is kind of like the back door beginning with that exuberance and that freedom, and then kind of locking in and focusing on like what the painting or the image is kind of asking for color-wise, and which colors feel like they bring things to a sort of completion.
I'm also quite curious about the way that you sort of conceive of like language structures in your work, because there's this sort of like the phrase is escaping me, but you like sort of repeat a word until it sort of decoheres. People being one of them. Can you talk about the way that language enters into the work, or how it sort of structures different things?
I mean, I love words. I love just the impossibility of words, and I think it is similar to my quack love of science, in that words are this beautiful and just completely impossible attempt to try to capture what it's like to experience life and be alive, and they're kind of
set up for failure.
And also within a word is encoded all these histories, like the history of having used the word, but also the like etymology of the word and how the words have changed over time. And I also think words can be quite funny. Like, I mean, yeah, people, right? Like, it's like, can't live with them, can't live without them. Like gosh. This painting here is titled Forgiveness Circle, Touch to Resolve a Problem, which is based off of something that I encountered, a park bench that I encountered in New York that just had a Sharpie outline of someone's hand with that phrase written inside of it. And I just took a picture of it and found it very evocative. and then it eventually got pared down to just being a problem. And also kind of, this is a painting. I work on some paintings. Some of them just come out really very quickly, but some of them I work on for a really long time. Like this painting is called History, and I started it like almost 10 years ago. And it's gone through very many iterations and various points of frustration. But like in this painting, it's actually started as one of those like ready-made IKEA photo images, and then I painted over it many times, and then added the spirals, and then it just felt like this problem to solve, but also like the problem, the people problems, the problems of forgiveness, of living together, trying to deal with one another. And so I guess I try to encode a bit of those problem-solving mechanisms in the work.
Yeah, we talked in studio at one point, and we were talking about different dispositions of artists. There are some artists who sort of have an idea, and then they set out and they make some finished thing.
Yeah.
And that's like one model, finish fetish, or insert whatever. But you brought up like another model, which is like a termite artist, with which you seem to identify strongly.
Yes, yeah.
Could you talk more about
the
that
Manny,
as it pertains to your interests?
Manny Farber essay, Elephant Art versus Termite Art, was, thank you for reminding me of that, kind of a turning point for me this winter, because I started grad school this fall, and then I was like, all right, no more messing around. Like you gotta think of some really good ideas for making art. and then I was like, I just found that to be such a bore and so frustrating, and just like not. And then in this Farber essay, he describes the kind of termite artist as like they're just digging and digging and just going deeper and deeper and kind of feeling their way through. And I was like, yeah, exactly. Like I'm a termite artist, live or die. And the elephant artist is being the kind of like it's based off of white elephant Christmas party, like that you are like presenting a nice gift basically that someone would want, versus like you're just like toiling and deconstructing this thing that is more idiosyncratic than that, I think. And that is very much how I work and how I find the most. I mean, it's like a collaboration between me, other people, and the world, and we're all collaborating in time and place, and like images and colors and words are emerging, and then they can kind of find their place of like deliverance on, in the painting or in the work, and at least for the time being, kind of like rest there for a minute.
You bring up collaboration, and it feels sort of apt, generally speaking. You're a pretty prolific organizer. You write about other people's things. You even spent a significant deal of time working with like an avant-garde like puppet troupe.
Yes,
Like-
my past working with the puppet theater.
Could you talk a little bit about your collaborative endeavors as like a just informational
Yeah.
matter, and then like how it pertains to your conception of art practice personally?
Yeah. I mean, I think I've always, conceived of art making as some kind of antidote to loneliness and as a form of communication. I think that's also why there's so many words, is because I am really interested in communicating a message. What exactly that message is, that who's to say? But I think there is a fundamental desire to communicate something, and then to receive something in return too, which is participation and collaboration with others. I have a curatorial practice, an exhibition called the Museum of I Love You So Much, which I organize every year. And then I also organize Sunday Show and Tell, which is an event that happens at my studio or at other places where different artists host a show and tell event where they bring items based on around a theme to show and tell about. And I feel like all of those, in the same way that like often when I'm making, I use a lot of found surfaces and found objects in the work that I make, and that feels like a collaboration with environment and circumstance and other people in some way. And I also with this painting, Forgiveness Circle, like it really was a problem that I was like struggling with, and I had friends over at my studio, and I was like, help me fix this painting. And then they just started like putting, they were like, let's put dots over here, and it was kind of like, I was like, sure, maybe let's just make my paintings together. And I think, I guess I have an orientation towards togetherness and being with others, and like a painting can feel so static sometimes, and that's why that one's on wheels. So it could just hopefully fly away and meet someone else besides me.
It often, like, you're kind of working with found materials quite a bit. They feel quite close. Like, where are you? Are you just like picking up trash on your walks? Like tell me about your scavenging process.
Yeah. Well, so I've made a couple paintings on bed frames, which are bed frames that it has to be, obviously there's a lot of bed frames out there on the street. It has to be the right one. It has to not be creepy seeming. But I think there's something about the bed frame as, like the bed is sort of where you're born and die, and so there's a connection there to this idea of beginnings, and a kind of never ending or perpetual life cycle. So I like, and I also just like architecturally, the structure of a bed frame kind of has this kind of modular or like almost minimalist architectural form that I find compelling as a surface to, it really starts because I'm like, that is a surface that seems interesting to alter. And then, once I get kind of locked into, I'm a scavenger, I'm a collector, a treasure hunter, always have been, always will. And also I think I like that there's like something could have a new life after. So I'll use a lot of found canvases, or in my studio, sometimes my neighbors will just leave like reject paintings in the hallway, and then I'll, take their reject paintings and accept them and rework them in some way. And I think it's like a puzzle that I find so compelling, and in some ways kind of a metaphor for life cycles and how we move through the world as people. I think, yeah, I don't feel as activated by the impulse of like going to the store and buying the canvas and saying and being like, now I'm going to make something, even though I do have this joke like that I'm like, I want to make something beautiful on purpose. And I hope I look forward to trying that out what that feels like, but it really feels like there's a lot of incidentals that just make their way into the painting, and a lot of it I feel like I don't have control over, which I enjoy.
It also feels like it gives it a sense of, it imbues a sort of like history or sense of like lived life to the works, like that they're like
it's like
artifacts
aura,
or something.
like
Aura. You're aura farming.
I'm always aura farming. I think I became really obsessed with rereading Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction last year in 2024, because it was the 100-year anniversary of that essay, and also when it felt like suddenly everyone started talking about AI, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening on this perfect 100-year cycle. Like now we have a new age of mechanical reproduction, and in that essay he talks about how like an object that is used has a kind of aura, versus an object that is manufactured has less aura. And so I guess the aura farming tendency is what draws me to a lot of the materials and colors and forms that I use.
There's also a feeling of like aura feels related to eminence, and I'm thinking about the sort of tome at the front of the show, your like quote unquote manifesto about art being easy.
Yeah.
I would love for you to just maybe like talk about that sort of philosophical like conceit.
Yeah, I think it is something I believe that that art is kind of the natural orientation of the world, and that I have these taped on clippings of my fingernails that and just kind of this having a sense of awe of that your body is constantly producing what you might call a sort of work of art, that your hair grows, your nails grow, and the fact that it like the whole thing just stays together is like this miracle. And like we're just walking around being miracles and then like getting jobs. And that's okay. I mean, I think miracles need jobs. Or it helps to have something to do. But kind of staying close to that feeling of awe and like really defending life and a sense of positivity that I think can feel kind of dangerous to be positive and believe in life and believe that it's worth paying attention to ourselves and each other. And but I think it's it's a worthy endeavor, and that everyone has some kind of story to tell that I think matters. And I think that's kind of the the offhanded like art is easy. Of course it is and it isn't, but like it's not that hard, like it's I think I guess it's also like treating your life as a kind of art project in of itself, I think is kind of what it comes down to, and is a feeling that I have, and that compels me to make these things.
I think that's a good way to we could open it up for some questions, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey.
When you earlier had mentioned kind of like work towards reaching sort of beginner's mindset, that strikes a chord with me. I'm wondering if that is more of a sort of natural orientation that you maybe have, or if that's something that you need to return to or remind yourself of.
I think it's both. I was talking yesterday with a friend about how all of the classes that I was put in as a child that involved a certain set of way of doing things, like piano or ballet, I just rejected completely. Like I was okay with jazz, but tap was too structured. And a very special family member who is here tonight, who there was an art class that was across from my elementary or art school that was across the street from my elementary school, where they would put in the window all of the drawings and paintings that were done by kids that were super, super realistic with their ages. So you'd be like, oh my gosh, a 7-year-old made that portrait of like Snow White and it looks so real. And I like really, really wanted to go and like begged to be enrolled. And she was like, absolutely not. And found this amazing woman in the valley named Janet, where, you know, it was just sponges and clay and like you just hang out in her backyard and like watch movies, and it was super cozy and just like free. And I thank Lynette for having the forethought to see that I would have thrived way more in Janet's class. And this, like, honestly, maybe if I took that class across the street, I would have been like, well, this is hard and sucks. Like, so I think, yeah, I think maybe, yeah. And that gave me some kind of confidence in just following my own instincts, that I'm obviously always just like, it's a constant uphill battle to return there and like preserve that state. But yeah, thanks, Janet. My dad he emailed Janet without my prompting and was like basically sent like my whole like update on the past like 20 years of my life, and was like and now Hannah has a show. So yeah.
I don't know exactly how to formulate this, but I guess I'm thinking about like, so this piece up here is kind of like it's like a legend in a way, like a color legend, and there's like, you know, a level of like symbolism, like a symbolic language that you're kind of creating and making this, and there's like you're kind of like making a secret language in a way. Maybe you don't think about it that way, but there's like an aspect of art which like kind of conceals its message, and an aspect I think which like reveals. And I'm wondering, like, because it's really helpful to have like to be here and to have some explanation as like a way into the work.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, if you have thoughts on like what is the best way to invite an observer into the work?
Yeah. I mean,
because you know you do want to communicate.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something I think about a lot. I mean, it is, you know, it's like the art is easy thing. I'm like, this doesn't have to be so hard and complicated, you know, like, and it's like, if you need a whole essay to know what's going on, like, I really, you know, would like hope that, you know, I think the information is helpful, but that there's like enough of an entry point. I also work, like, my first job out of college was working in like museum education and accessibility education. And so I am like, I think it should be accessible. It just shouldn't be so complicated. But at the same time, there is this kind of, there is like a secret world encoded that I am interested in both kind of keeping private, but also sharing and giving giving the key away a bit. It's really funny to overhear people talking about this work and talking about which numbers were their favorite or which colors, which number colors were the most evocative for them. And like so many people were like, I just love 17. And I'm like, God, that's so, yeah, 17.
Terrible year for you.
Yeah,
but I'm glad you like it. Yeah.
That was, no, 17 was good. As you'll see, 18 was really rough. Yeah. And then 19, we sort of lightened up. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested in kind of towing that line, I think. And I think that's also why like words and numbers can be helpful, because they are these kind of symbols that we all share together and are like collective in a way.
Like titles can be
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I have some kind of crazy titles for some of these works that are where some of the writing and poetry come into play.
I hand people I hand them the guide.
Yeah, the key.
Just like, please, yes, you keep it. Yeah, what was the title for that one drawing that's actually not on view here, but it's in the back?
Is it the one that's the poem?
It's like only suckers,
only.
but yeah.
I thought I could find out by looking, but only suckers buy what lovers get for free.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I feel like it's a show that, it's been interesting. I feel like there's two different ways that people engage. Some people don't even go there, and they walk around, and I hear those people giggling quite a lot.
Yeah, I love that. Like just giggle,
old
like
and
just
young.
giggle.
Yeah, there's been like lots of like ambient giggling,
Yeah.
and they don't have any of the text. So I'm just like, you must be connecting in some way to this.
See, that is like amazing to me, because I'm like, a giggle is just like an automatic response to something you don't even know what's happening. You're like, I can't help, I'm giggling. Yeah. And that's like best case scenario and like pre-verbal, right?
Yeah. I appreciate what you're saying also though, because your question, I also am an artist and I think about that a lot. Like how much to let in, how much to like, I don't know. We were talking the other day about the infection of contemporary art with like postmodern theory.
Yeah, critical theory.
Yeah, and how like art suddenly had to be like making like really specific like arguments for
and
its
like
own
references to itself and
a structure and how it subverts that structure, but then somehow stands alone from that.
Critical theory really just took over the whole conversation. And I've been reading, as we spoke about, a lot of like art history lectures and texts from like the 40s and 50s, and it's like just interesting how the kind of conversations circle back. And they're just and I think with the criticality thing too, it's like this like I also think a lot about Eve Kosofsky-Sedgwick's reparative reading versus paranoid reading. And I feel like the critical theory approach is having a paranoid reading of everything. Like you're like, so what is it like? And it's like having a reparative reading is like, you're like looking into, I think the reparative reading has an effect on the reparative effect that the making of the work has on the maker can be transferable to the viewer. Mm-hmm. And I feel that feels like a more productive approach to making work to me.
So you'd rather someone be tickled and have no idea than sort of know and like. Yeah,
well, I mean, what would they know? What is there
science
to know? Yeah, like they would know like the truth about me and why I made the painting.
They would know what you did 5 summers ago.
Yeah, like sure, like but could they really? It was green and pink, like
Yeah.
So I think it's like also because I did museum education, I did these tours, and it's like people are always, they want to know what there is to know, and I did a lot of programming with people with Alzheimer's and dementia, which was amazing because it's like they're not going to remember what the information, and that's not part of the conversation. It's just like what's happening right now, and you're giggling. That's what you should do. That's what you should be after.
Yeah. I also find sometimes that, well, you go out and like, I don't know, there's like a stakes sometimes that I feel like is unproductive to art exhibitions, where again, it maybe for me at least comes back to this idea of like some sort of like thesis or some sort of like excruciating system that must have a deliverable of some like intellectual shape, and then you go in, and if it doesn't sit with you or me, I sometimes find myself like feeling disappointed, and then I'm like, well, this must surely be net negative, like if I have gone in and
right, like am I missing the message, or like there's something.
Yeah.
I don't like illusion. I don't like tricking people. I want to put all my cards out on the table.
Yeah.
and just kind of let it be what it is. And I don't think that that's in opposition to like rigor
Mhm.
of thought, to let something be simple.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Pieces that surprised you, or like elements of the piece that surprised you?
Well, this painting, people, was the last painting that I finished for the show, and I wasn't sure if it was gonna. It feels like the most risky for me because there's a lot of empty space, and it was very much my like experimenting with using oil paint, which is something more new for me, and just kind of like freaking out about the way that light and texture, and yellow was my favorite color as a kid, and just like kind of like figuring out how it operated, and then I felt like it couldn't be done, it couldn't just be yellow and be finished, and then there was a couple touches that I think kind of made it feel more complete, but it obviously I like to pack a lot of information into the surface, and so it kind of surprised myself that I could just let it be.
I'm wondering what compelled you to continue on that 10-year painting on easels.
Oh, it really, well,
We'll talk about how it started.
it started with a Blick, one of those like Blick panels that I think I got probably for free from a teaching job. And I was like, okay, here's a panel I'm going to make. Because I used to really make more drawings and then kind of like works on paper, paint like gouache and watercolor paintings on paper. And so I was like, oh, it's a painting. We're going to make a painting. And I just found it so frustrating at every level. Like it was like, and then at one point, and then I just was like, I started like gluing things onto it. There's like a fish spine encoded in there somewhere, and some pennies and some money and like pencil shavings and then it just became like, and then I was like, well, screw this. Like this is just gonna be a place where I experiment and test different things out. I put some fabric on there, and I think it felt more like an exercise for a while. Like I got this acrylic gel medium that has pumice rocks in it, and I was like, oh, I'll kind of try that. And then at one point I like burned it, and then I like let it I soaked it in a river. And then I kind of I think at the time I also started making paintings on rocks, which is like a side thing that doesn't matter and we don't need to talk about. But I was kind of in making contemporary archaeology or a contemporary fossil, something that looks historical or that's really been through a lot, but is kind of manufactured, or that it is archaeological, even if it's the past 10 years of my specific life. And then the shipping, when I worked at David's Werner across the street, they would give me just anytime there was garbage they were getting rid of. Basically, they were like, Hannah would want this, which was always true. And so it's a shipping container box. And then the painting fit perfectly inside. And then I was like, okay, this is a sign. It's time to finish this painting. And then the flash paint, which I really like using, just kind of, and the dots were the final touches. And then I was like, you just gotta let her roll down the river.
So the frame of it was from something else. The painting itself is just the
so the painting is nailed inside of the frame, and it was just a weird thing that it's I think it's 10 by 10 inches or something, and it just plopped inside. And that was, I think, the lid of a shipping container that I kind of, just screwed apart. Yeah.
It's so nice to see your work. I haven't really seen it in person before. And from what I know about you, I feel like you're such a sponge of a person. You have a earnestness that I find really rare and something that I immediately loved about you. And I'm curious about if you could walk us through some of your newfound inspirations for making things, for taking things in.
Ones that are part of this show or ones that have...
Yeah, either part of the show or kind of generating things for you right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's really color. I'm realizing I'm so obsessed with when you are driving around and you see those where graffiti has been painted over in different shades of brown and gray for 5 years, and I'm like, that is the most beautiful painting. It's just, it has so much aura. And I mean, right now I have been really inspired by reading kind of basic art historical texts, which I guess some would think are dry, but I find riveting. and really just kind of, trying to understand how we, because I work very intuitively, and it does feel like I'm just kind of following a line, taking a line for a walk, as Paul Klee said. But then it's also really nice to read about history and about how these kind of ephemeral or instinctual gestures can then be kind of codified into a history that is collective and shared and speaks to what being alive means at particular moments in time and history. So I've started reading a lot. It's just nice. What's up, Tristan?
It's kind of has to do with that. I was thinking about you reading the word rigor, and I was thinking about that because you certainly have rigor, but maybe in a way that isn't always expected. It doesn't feel like a rigor, like a rigor of knowledge, but like a rigor of discovery. And but and I also know like we studied art history. I'm curious if there's ever a clash, like how you hold on to that this like flavor of rigor that
Yeah.
kind of brings a lot of specialness.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, it feels like two parts of my personality that are always kind of dancing around each other, which is like, yeah, my interest in like in knowability and unknowability, and the kind of conflict between those two, and the impulse towards one or the other. And I like very intentionally chose to study art history in undergrad because I was like, nobody should be teaching me how to make what I make. Like that's what I make. But I can learn about how people have talked about what has been made, and then maybe that will make me feel more confident in doing whatever I want. And now that I'm in art school, I'm having a different experience, which has also been very enjoyable. But yeah, I think it's like, I think both are really important. And I do think that like, I think history should be, I think history is really important. I think it's really, like, I love art history. I'm such a nerd for art history. I love, it feels like it's an art project in of itself that we, really toil to try to figure out, like, what do the colors mean? What do the lines mean? What are the form, to try to make a science of, or an institution or an academy out of what is just like these strange expressions of all these people's souls is like so funny to me and like charming. And I think I'm like both invested in it and also feel very like playful around it. Yeah. I hope that answers the question.
I think we have time for one last question, if any linger.
Yeah.
What's your favorite color right now?
Oh my gosh. That is such a good question. Maybe silver. Is silver a color? Yeah. I'm pretty excited about silver right now. And there's no silver in here. Oh, there's a little gold dot. More silver to come.
We eagerly await it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.